Ata Yudaiti, Yeshia, Adonai, Mashiach, Yarneu, Mishnei, Koche, Bigures, Yesha Yemina, Eila Berechev, Veila Basusim, Vanachno B'Shem, Adonai, Eloheinu Naskiv, Hema, Korov Nafol, Vanachno, Kamna Banaseda, Adonai Yeshia, Hamelach Yarnenu, V'yem Kareinu. So we're on page 7 in the booklet, middle of Ois Daled. It was explaining how Yeshus is not only something which leads a person to taivas, to do things that are inappropriate and violate Torah, it also prevents a person from observing mitzvahs. How is that? So he gives the example of tzedakah. The mitzvah of tzedakah is to give another person. The more a person is a yesh, the more a person is invested in self, that person finds it more difficult to give away of himself to someone else. So even if he gives tzedakah, it's basically what he's giving is sort of what's left over. First, he takes for himself, of course, his necessities. Then he makes an account of all his luxuries. It's basically, once he feels that there's really not much more that I can do for myself, I have some leftover dollars, I'll give it to another person. So the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in the Maimer that even though he gave tzedakah, but the spiritual purpose of tzedakah was not fulfilled. The whole purpose of tzedakah, good morning, is bittul. Say the word bittul and Leah walks in. Wow. The whole purpose of tzedakah is bittul. And bittul is to give of myself. So this person who's really not giving of themselves, they're taking everything they want for themselves. Because it's sort of left over, I can give it. The real tzedakah is that a person should do the opposite. And he brings the pasuk, Mishpat tzedakah v'yakev ata sisa. Tzedakah comes together with mishpat, judgment. What's the judgment? First I judge, meaning I make a calculation, and I judge myself how much I really need, what are my needs, and these are the things that me, my family, we have to have. And then I give others as well, and not I say I have my needs, and I have my luxuries, and I have my extras, and after there's extras, Sheba extras, then I'll give something for tzedakah. So the real, the deeper explanation why this is based on Yeshus is another thing. Where's the money coming from? Who gave it to me? Where did I get it from? So a yesh will attribute all the credit to himself. It's my wisdom, my talent, my skill, and that's why I'm making money, in fact, more than other people. But the person who has bittul will clearly recognize that it's Hashem. It's Hashem giving the money, giving him a gift. And Hashem, who gave him the money, says to him, I want you to give X amount to yourself, and I want you to share this with others. And then the person doesn't even feel that it's his in the first place. It was given to me in order to give others. Yesh never thinks along these lines. He doesn't think it was given to me. It was given, whatever I have is because I really deserve it. I worked for it, and I worked hard for it, and I used my talent and skill. So that was the story I told you yesterday with the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, that when they had some sort of unusual profit in business, they said, certainly the Alter Rebbe needs money for something, and therefore it's his bracha that we have this special success in business today. They took that money, which was sort of more than the usual, put it aside, and waited when the Alter Rebbe Shliach will come, they'll give it to him. What?
They give them maaser or all the money?
More than maaser. In other words, in a day that the person had a big success. I think I told a story during the Yudalit Kislev, an example of a chassid. That there was a chassid who lived in Israel. His name was Rabbi Parish. Every chassid is known for something that they were excelled in, so to speak. He excelled in his discussions to the Rebbe. That was, in those days, it was the Friedrich Rebbe. Later, he was equally connected to the Rebbe. You might remember, I told you the story that the Rebbe got engaged much longer, much way before the Rebbe got married. No one knows exactly what was going on, but definitely one of the things that is known, and this is maybe in Russia or something else, but the Friedrich Rebbe wanted that this wedding should be on a very large scale. But often, sort of royalty. Now, even though the Friedrich Rebbe had two other daughters, and both of their weddings were regular weddings, but this wedding with the Rebbe, obviously, Friedrich Rebbe knew who the Rebbe is and what the future is going to be. He wanted it to be on a different scale. And therefore, only after he left Russia and went to Poland was he ready to do the wedding, but they couldn't have the wedding simply because there was no money to make a wedding, definitely not a big wedding. There was hardly money to survive. Don't forget, they came out of Russia, had to leave everything behind. So there was a chassid. This chassid that I mentioned, he lived in Israel, and he happened to have one of those fortunate days that everybody would wish to have, that he found a bag that had hundreds of thousands of shekel. I don't know how much money was there. There was no indication at all who it could belong to, no name, no nothing. So it's his, according to halacha. His thought came, wow, now I have money to send to the Rebbe, so he'll be able to make the wedding. The second thought was, I'm going to send it right now. It wasn't thinking I'm going to give Meiser to the Rebbe. It wasn't thinking I'm going to give Meiser to myself and send 90% to the Rebbe. His thought was, I'm going to give everything to the Rebbe. Then he was afraid, what if my Yitzhara is going to come and tell me, wait a second, calm down. I mean, you found so much money. You can also use a little bit of money. It's not that he was a rich person. So in order not to give the Yitzhara any chance, from that spot when he found the money, went straight to the bank, and he sent the money from Israel to Poland. That's the Rebbe showed money for the wedding. And right after that, the priest never made the wedding. Wow. So when you give Meiser, that's sort of an obligation. That's not a chiddush. You're obligated, just like you're obligated to put on tefillin, put up a mezuzah, eat matzah on Pesach. You're obligated to give Meiser. Giving more than Meiser, that's already going a step ahead. But we're talking about the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, when they had a big gain, they gave it all away, because why all of a sudden would they have such a big profit? So a different person would say, well, I think I davened very good this morning. That's why I'm doing much better spiritually, so I deserve more. The Chazal didn't even think along those lines. He thought along the lines that the Rebbe gave him a bracha, and that's why he has the money. Why would the Rebbe give him a bracha? Probably he needs the money. Good morning, welcome back. So I would say yesterday, I would tell you another story. I forgot the name of the Rebbe. It's not one of the Rebbeim of Chabad, but it was a certain Rebbe that a chassid came to him, and he said that his daughter is engaged after the wedding. He has no money, and the amount of money that they need is 300 ruble. It's an enormous amount, and he doesn't know what to do. So the Rebbe said to him, I'll give you a note and give it to one of my chassidim who lives in this town, a wealthy chassid, and he'll help you. So he wrote down on the note that please give this and this chassid 300 ruble on my account. He comes to that chassid, he travels, goes to him, shows him the note. Chassid looks at it and says 300 ruble. I'm not sure that I have the amounts correct. Whatever amount it was in those days, it was a big amount. And he looks at it and says, I mean, I can help you, but not 300 rubles. That's an enormous amount of money for me. The Rebbe writes on my account. I don't know what do you mean by my account. I don't have any accounts with the Rebbe. I would have a business account with him. I can give you 200 rubles. So the chassid said, listen, I didn't come here to ask for a donation. I came here because the Rebbe sent me. If you want to do what the Rebbe said, fine. If not, I'll go back to the Rebbe and say that you weren't ready to do it. So I can't. 300 ruble is just more than I can handle. So Yitaka went back to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, okay, I'll give you a note to a different chassid. He's not so wealthy like the first one. So he writes on the note that please help him for the wedding. Give him 200 ruble on my account. Comes to the other chassid, who was not so wealthy, 200 ruble. He says, listen, I'd like to give you the money. The Rebbe asked, I'd be more than happy to give it to you. I just don't have it. If you're ready to wait a few days, and I'll go to a few people, get some loans, I'll put the money together. So yeah, I'm ready to wait. He waited a few days. He went to some of his business friends. He got some loans and he gave him the 200 ruble. Shortly after, the first guy started to notice that things weren't going so good in business. And every week or so, things got worse and worse. At the end, it was so bad that he had to sell whatever was left of his business. And then he couldn't find a job, and he had to sell furniture of his house. Then he had to sell his house. He was really rock bottom. The other chassid, every week, his business was getting better and better. And he found out what had happened, and he put together two and two, and he realized, obviously, that guy who followed the Rebbe got these enormous brachas. And me, I guess I got punished because I didn't give the money. He was very broken, and Pashit was struggling to survive. So he came to the Rebbe's city, and he wanted to ask the Rebbe that he should have compassion and just give him a bracha that he should at least have what he needs. Funny thing, the Rebbe didn't want to see him, didn't want to even meet with him. So he didn't know what to do. So people told him that just be by the Rebbe's window. And if you're going to cry by the Rebbe's window, he won't be able to control himself. We'll have to talk to you, okay? And that's what he did. He was by the Rebbe's window, crying one day, a second day, a third day. So the Rebbe said to his secretary, what does he want from me? What does he want? So he went to him and said, the Rebbe's asking, what do you want? So I guess from this part of the story, you also see how much of a chassid he was. He says, I want to have a din Torah with the Rebbe. I want to go to Bezdin with the Rebbe. I have a case against him. Okay. So the Rebbe said, okay, I'll go. So they got 3 Rabbanim. I mean, no chassid would call the Rebbe to a din Torah. 3 Rabbanim, and they sat down, and he started, he gave his first case first. That the the guy came to me with this note. I don't have that kind of money. It said on the note, my account. I don't have any accounts with Rebbe. I didn't understand. I was willing to give him less. He wouldn't take it. So the business says, no, what does the Rebbe say? So the Rebbe said like this, when my neshama came down to this world, I was given a mission, a number of things, a lot of things that I have to accomplish. In order to accomplish all these things, together with my neshama coming down, they gave me a lot of money to do what I need to do. What I do with the money, I distribute it amongst chassidim. I gave this chassid some money, that chassid some money, the other chassid some money. So now when I come to him, I say, I need money for something. He tells me, I don't have any account with you, so I can't trust him with my money. I had to give it to a different chassid. Anyway, I'm sure you're curious to know what the Bezdin ruled. The ruling was that Rebbe has to give him a bracha, that he should at least have money for his basic needs and not have to, God forbid, beg for his sustenance. And that's what happened for the rest of his life. He never got back where he was. In other words, what the Rebbe was saying was, the money you got was really, I gave you a bracha to have that money because I needed the money for my things. And in a sense, I put my money in your hands and let you have it, and I let you have it, and I let you have it. If a chassid understands that, when the Rebbe asks him for money, of course he's ready to give it. Because the reason why I have money is to do good things with it. And if my Rebbe is telling me that this is something he wants me to do, I'm ready. So this is what bittul is all about. That I recognize is coming from above, and it's not something which is coming from me and because of my greatness. This is where we left off yesterday. The line that begins with the word hashpa.
The story you just told, which Rabbi
I don't remember the name. I remember where I read it, but I don't remember the name.
Okay.
It's in a book called Sipuri Chassidim, which is Chassidic Tales by Rabbi Zevin.
Wow.
He was a Chabad Chassid, but the stories are from all different rabbis.
Wow.
So, you know what? We'll start with two lines before that. The line that begins with the word Shenoisnin. No, B'dvarim. That's 2, 4, 6, 7 lines from the top. B'dvarim on page 7. A person should know the fact that they give him this abundance from above, Shef Arav, a lot of hashpah, a lot of sustenance. Hashem is not giving it to him only for himself, exclusively. Somebody who is not making mistakes in the judgment of himself really knows who he is and understands that he's not who says that he deserves to have who knows what. He will stop and think properly. Why did Hashem give him this abundance? Not everybody has it. Hashem gave him wealth. Why did Hashem give me so much wealth? He would come to the conclusion that did he really deserve this, and is he really the one responsible for this great profit? In fact, I look at others, and I look at them, I think to myself, they're much better than me in their davening, or their learning, and their character traits, and their other things. Why did Hashem give him? Why did Hashem choose me? It must be the fact that Hashem gave it to me is to give me the merit to give tzedakah to others. So Hashem is giving it to me, but really the intention is to pass this on to someone else. But of course, the arrogant person would say, no, because I'm better than everybody else, so I really deserve it. That's why I'm getting it. That's one way of thinking. The other way of thinking is, that this is a test. The reason why Hashem gave me a lot of money is to test me. If I will stand up to the test to fulfill my obligation. I think it was one of the classes when we spoke about the mind of the tests. If you remember, we spoke about the fact that there are 5 kinds of tests. And one of them is wealth. One of the tests is wealth, which means, of course, it's a test when a person's got to be suffering poverty. If they're suffering poverty, will they still serve Hashem properly? But the other test is when a person has a lot of money, will they serve Hashem properly? And there's a story in Gemara, not a story, there's a statement in Gemara, the Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, he would give a lot of honor to wealthy people. And the Rebbe wants to explain why. After all, in the secular world, in the materialistic world, money is the most important thing. If you have a lot of money, you're an important person. You don't have money, you're a nobody. But in Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's world, which is the Torah world, why would he respect someone because he has a lot of money? The way most Mefarshim explain it, it was because of tzedakah. He gives a lot of tzedakah. But then it should have said, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi respected a lot of the wealthy people who gave tzedakah. It doesn't say anything about tzedakah. It just says people who had a lot of money, he would give them a lot of respect. It appears to be just because they had the money. So the answer is because of this. There are 2 kinds of tests. One test is where a person being tested by not having, by lacking, by the fact that I don't have the things I need. And the other test is that I have an abundance, have a lot. Which of the 2 tests are greater? So, according to Torah, the bigger test, the harder test is actually wealth. Of course, everybody's thinking, Hashem, give me the harder test. I'll try that. But it's a harder test. And therefore, if it's a harder test, and Hashem doesn't give a person a test, unless he also gives them the koyach to overcome the test. So who has more koyach than anyone else? The wealthy person. The more wealth you have, that means Hashem trusted you with tremendous amount of positive power. Otherwise, he wouldn't give you the test. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda Nasi saw a person who's a millionaire. He said, this person has millions of pounds of koyach that Hashem gave him. Wow, that's why I respect him. So therefore, if a person sees he has a lot of money, he doesn't think, oh, I deserve it. He thinks that this is the way Hashem is testing me. So again, the purpose is to give tzedakah and to help out someone else. And by the way, why is the test of wealth considered more challenging than the test of poverty? We explained it then, but I'm wondering if anybody
in
remembers.
poverty, you pray to Hashem that He saves you, and in wealth, like the test is still having everything. Do you like pray for something more? Like even if you have everything like in the physical, you still care about the spiritual.
Okay, what do you want to say?
Money give you like feeling of like I am kol and like I made it myself and I have bitachon and I have house, and poverty make you like ask from people and know that you are like dependent on someone.
Right. So maybe you're both saying the same thing, and that's really the reason that's found in Chassidus. A person who is poor and broken because they're poor, because of that, though, they're more of a keli for godliness, and they feel Hashem more. A person who's a yesh, which basically, a person who's very successful, success usually breeds arrogance. We see this all the time. Whether it's success in money, whether it's success someone has a high position, whether it's success in some other way, it usually breeds yeshus. And the more yesh a person is, the harder it is for him to stand up to the test. So really, that's a bigger test. One time, the Rabbi Marash, when Chassidim came to him for Yechidus, he usually made it very brief. There was no, like, generally speaking, long Yechidus for a very long time. It was usually brief. So the Chassidim was standing and waiting to go in, and there was a chassid standing, and he notices that one of the chassidim went in before him, who was a wealthy chassid, was there for about 10 minutes. Then another chassid who went in before him, also a wealthy chassid, also went in for a longer time. He walks in, the Rebbe told him something, and in 2 minutes it was over. He was a little bit offended, but obviously he couldn't contain himself. And he said to the Rebbe, I don't understand, how come these wealthy chassidim come in and you give them so much time? And I walk in and I just get 2 minutes. Again, a normal chassid would never say that to the Rebbe. When I say normal, I don't mean mentally, I mean spiritually. Anyway, the Rebbe Marash said to him that when you walk in, I don't have to explain to you that you're poor. But when a wealthy person walks in, I have to explain to him that he's poor. It takes a little bit longer. It's a play on words of wealth and poor. Okay. So let's get back to the money over here. Let's say, so this is where it should have been. This is what he should have been thinking. Avo, the calls there who mishu b'shiflus, a person who is humble, yizbeinu b'kolanal, he would meditate on all this, ulavova yovin shekenu, and in his heart he'll feel that this is the real truth, why he was blessed with so much wealth or so much bracha in whatever area it is. But when he feels exalted, he feels very precious and important in his own eyes, everything is part of his necessities. There's nothing that he has which is extra. Whatever he has, like we said the other day, the 5 houses or the boats, the yachts and the planes and whatever he has, he can't give tzedakah because these are his expenses. He has to live on that level. And also, even if you recognize that Hashem gave him the money, he also thinks that Hashem gave him the money because he deserves it more than anyone else. So what do we see here? That his nasus, which means arrogance, not only can cause a person to be driven to do averas, but my nasa is a mitzvah tzedakah that prevents him from giving tzedakah. So we said before that tzedakah is just a model for all other mitzvahs. So now he concludes, the same applies to every positive commandment, every mitzvah. There's really a deep, hidden intention in every mitzvah. That what is it all about? In other words, this is really amazing, a whole new definition of a mitzvah. That the mitzvah is all about me being mevatel myself. Only thing is that when I give tzedakah, the bittul is money. When I make a bracha on a matzah, that's bittul in another way. When I hear the shofar, that's bittul in a different way. Which means every mitzvah is all about bittul, but it's just 613 or 248 different ways of bittul to Hashem, of me giving of myself and connecting to Hashem. And remember that these two things go together. We always say mitzvah means tzapsa v'chibur, to connect. Real connection to Hashem means to let go of holding on to myself. But again, it's not like people think, especially with the English translation, they translate bittul as nullified. Nullified doesn't have such an exciting connotation. It's not really nullified. It's becoming one with something that's way, way higher than myself. What am I nullifying? I'm really giving up the narishkeit. I mean, imagine if a child is holding on to their sussy, to their what do they call it?
Pacifier.
What? Pacifier. And you're training them to let go of it because they're growing up. They're being mevatel, the foolishness of a young child. Now they're growing up. It's not losing. You're becoming something bigger. You're becoming higher. Giving up myself is not losing something. It's not destroying something. It's becoming one with Hashem. So therefore, every mitzvah, which means connecting to Hashem, also means letting go of that obsession with self to a degree. There's a famous story where the Rebbe Rashab, the Friedrich Rebbe, told the story in a Sikha, that it was once a Farbrengen. There's a long introduction to the story about how that all happened, but it was a Farbrengen on Purim, and the Rebbe Rashab was not in Lubavitch, he was actually traveling, and all the Chassidim who lived in the area came to the Farbrengen. It was very unusual. They were all excited. And that Purim, the Rebbe told everybody to say a lot of L'chaim, and the Rebbe himself drank a lot of L'chaim. And then at one point, the Rebbe Rashab said, who wants to go on my wagon? Who wants to join my wagon? And then he continued and said, my wagon is decorated with the brilliant, deep concepts of Chassidus, and it's saturated with the sweat and tears of Avodah of Chassidus. Chassidus has two parts. One part is intellectual, learning deep subjects. The other part is Avodah, working on self-refinement. So he said the wagon has decorated with the deep concepts of the intellectual part of Chassidus, but it's saturated with the sweat and the tears of Avodah of Chassidus. One of the Chassidim began to cry, and he screamed out, Rebbe, where are the steps to your wagon? So the Rebbe said, you're right, you need steps. And then he said, there are 4 steps. 2 steps to get off the ground, and 2 steps to get into the wagon. Which basically means I can't get into the wagon unless I'm ready to lift my feet off the ground. Baruch it means I can't go there unless I let go of here. So that means I can't really connect to Hashem unless I let go of the obsession with self. And the truth is, any kind of connection, even in the sense of a marriage. You know, some people are afraid to get married. They don't want to get married. Why not? Because marriage means I can no longer do what I want, when I want, where I want, how I want. And they don't like that idea. So they don't think that getting married is a good idea. The truth is, when 2 people get married, they're really stronger than they are as individuals, much stronger. Yes, it does require us giving up of like the idea that it's no longer just about me, it's about another person as well. It's also the same idea, it's bittul. In order to connect, there has to be a certain element of bittul. If there's no element of bittul, you can't connect to another person. And certainly you can't connect to Hashem without bittul. So really, every mitzvah is bittul in another way. One is when I'm learning Torah, it's bittul in my brain. When I'm davening, it's bittul in my heart. When I'm giving tzedakah, it's bittul, expressing bittul through my money. So therefore, this is the essence of what Elokus, godliness, is all about. Then he says, even a person that's not a yesh to the degree that we're describing here. It's not that strong that it'll actually prevent him from fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. He's not going to violate Torah. We just described someone that the yeshus is so strong that's actually going to lead him to violate Torah or prevent him from doing a mitzvah. But then you have people who are not on that level totally. They're observing Torah, observing mitzvahs, but they still could have yeshus. And therefore, he still is not a vessel for godliness. And as we explained the other day, what does it mean, vessel for godliness? To be able to feel that love and fear and awe of Hashem in a conscious way in my heart. That's something which I have to be a keli for. As we know, godliness dwells only in a place where there's bittul. It's interesting, this is one of the first things the Alter Rebbe teaches us in Tanya. One of the first chapters in Tanya, one of the first things we learn is the Alter Rebbe says that the definition of Kedusha is where godliness dwells. And then the Alter Rebbe says, and where does godliness dwell? Only where there's bittul. So obviously, this is fundamental to Chassidus and to the Avodah of Chassidus. As it says, more in the Kodesh Eshke. There's Dako Shvar Ruach Davke, like we brought the pasuk before, that Hashem says, I dwell all the way up there. I'm exalted. But I am also dwelling by the person who is Shvar Ruach, is very humble. And then we see how this also affects Torah study. Regarding knowledge of Torah, Rabbi Seinuzal, our sages say, the Torah will not last. Only someone who sort of dies for it. It's based on a pasuk which says, this is the Torah of a person and talks about a person who died in the tent. But the Gemara says that this, by the way, teaches us a lesson, and that is that the Torah, could it be really acquired Torah, is only for a person who gives up his life for it. Chas v'sholom, it doesn't mean dying. On the contrary, the Torah tells us you have to protect your health, you have to be healthy, you have to be strong, do everything you can to live long. So what does it mean? Misa wina bittul. In other words, God forbid, a person who dies means he's no longer here. This is no longer here in a subtle way, in a more subtle way, but it's the same idea of giving up myself. And only then, Yakim Torah, then the Torah will be the way it's supposed to be. And that's why the Torah was given only to Neshamas Yisrael. A Neshama B'Yid has this bittul in him inherently. And because they have the bittul in them inherently, therefore they're a keli for Torah, which is godliness. As it says, Hashem planted this light in the tzaddik, which means Zera HaKadosh Baruch Hu HaTorah mitzvahs. Hashem planted, sowed the seeds of Torah mitzvahs. And where's it sown? Where do you put seeds? If you put the seed on the table, even if you put on nice decorations, like, nice colors, and put the bowls and all sorts of beautiful things on it, nothing will happen, it won't grow. It'll only grow if it goes in the ground, and in the ground, the seed just has to deteriorate in the ground, and then it'll grow. Only then will it grow. And the Neshamas Yisrael are called the ground. It's a pasuk. Tiyu atem li eretz chayfetz. You are my desired land. The Eibush is comparing Yidden to his desired land. Why we call land? Like you said before, Eretz represents bittul, because the neshama of a yid has it in him inherently, the attribute of bittul. Like it says, Ki atem amat mekol amim. Hashem chose you because you're the least of all the nations. Let's look up that pasuk at 61. It's the pasuk in Chumash. In the book here, it's page 61. No, it's not 61. So then it must be 62. No, it must be 59. Yes, it's 59. And the pasuk it says, Hashem didn't choose you because you're so many. That's not why He chose you amongst all the nations, because you're more than the rest of the nations. On the contrary, He chose you because you're the least of all the people. You would think the meaning is least in numbers. We're smaller in numbers. But look at Rashi. Rashi says, it means you diminish yourselves. Like Abraham said, I am nothing but dust and ashes. Or like Moshe Rabbeinu said, Nachnu ma, what are we? In other words, the reason why I chose you is because of your bittul. So when you say we're the smallest, it don't mean small in quantity, it means in quality, in bittul. Another pasuk that says emes me'eretz titzmach, that's a pasuk in Tilim, and that's on page 60. Emes me'eretz titzmach means the truth will grow out of the land. What's the truth? Ein emes ala Torah. Torah is called emes. U'me'eretz dafke shubchin zabittul titzmich as a Torah. So he's going to explain how there's two ways you can learn Torah. You can learn Torah in a way which is with bittul, and you can learn Torah in a way which is without bittul. When will the Torah that I learn make me a vessel for godliness? It's only if it's studied with bittul. But even if I'm learning Torah, and a lot of Torah, but there's no bittul, then I also won't be a vessel for godliness. And then, in fact, we see that there's sometimes a person who happens to be an incredible Torah scholar, knows a lot of Torah, but also an arrogant person. And as a result of the arrogance, will act in a way which is arrogant towards others, offend other people. How could it be if he's learning Torah and he knows so much Torah? And the answer is because he's not learning Torah with bittul. So then, if you're not learning Torah with bittul and you're very successful, it's like any other abundance, any other success. That success breeds arrogance. But if I'm learning Torah and every time I learn something, I feel I'm getting closer to Hashem, then the more you learn, the more bittul you have. So the bittul is sort of a prerequisite for the Torah to have the effect it's supposed to have.
Rabbi Majeski,
Yes.
could bittul be like the son of Tevach, like it just comes naturally to them and to like accomplish this like madriga of like being bittul, like it just like comes naturally to them? Or does every person have this like just like always, and it takes a vayda to become?
Naturally, a person's a yesh. We have a Nefesh Bahamas. Nefesh Bahamas naturally is a yesh. And there are people that are like, even people that say they're not even Jewish. There's still different natures of people, that some people are more arrogant and some people are just, they don't carry themselves with such arrogance. But a person like that doesn't necessarily have to do with bittul to Hashem. It could be just a nature of, I don't like to be in the spotlight for whatever reason. You see, it's just a nature of people. Like certain children, for example, they can't stand being in the spotlight. It's not bittul. It's just a nature of wanting not to make a lot of noise about myself. I think a person like that would probably find it easier to develop bittul. But true bittul can only come from recognizing Hashem and feeling Hashem, and that's the real bittul. Not just being, but there could be a person that's sort of relatively humble without all this, just it's natural for him not to be so full of himself. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop here. As Nemni couldn't come in today, one of the children not feeling well, so we'll have a class on Mashiach and Gula together. And being that it's going to be together, and this room doesn't have bittul, and we don't want it to become bittul, so we'll go downstairs on the middle floor, I guess.
I mentioned to the two other classes.
Yeah.
Sister,
Talking about the same concept yesterday in class about like you said, so you're doing your busting yourself. And like for example, yeah, holiday sale, like
It's in the air now. It's in the air. It's the bittul season. Yud Shvat, you know.
Ah, true.
Yeah.